Okay. Hi, everyone. I'd like to talk to you today about a project that at the moment is at the conception and initial development stage, thanks to funding from Research England. And it's a very new research area for me. If I can get So the project, Altering the Face of Nature, Liverpool, Natural History and Empire, explores the role of Liverpool as an imperial hub for the global trade in plants and animals in the 19th and 20th centuries. How the non-human materiality of plants and animals shaped such an endeavour and was shaped by it, and the impact of such a trade on Liverpool, namely on its environment, landscape, and people, including on their relationship to and understanding of nature. It involves a range of institutions: World Museum, the International Slavery Museum, the Maritime Museum, Unilever, the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, Knowsley Safari Park, Ness Gardens, the Victoria Gallery and Museum, and the charity Grow Wellbeing, with support from a number of others. The aims of the project, now I'm learning why everyone had tricks with this equipment, to raise awareness of the impact of empire at home, or how empire was domesticated, particularly in regard to nature and the environment, which there's little scholarship on or awareness of, despite the scope and scale of the British Empire. To domesticate climate change, environmental destruction, and mass extinction, which from a UK vantage point largely seem like things that are happening elsewhere. To make the fear of and engagement with such overwhelming global problems manageable by localizing them. To find new ways to decolonize the natural world, including natural history collections. To engage with the working classes, particularly young people, who tend to be excluded from discussions both about empire and the environments in which they live. And to use these processes in turn to respond to climate change, biodiversity loss, and mass extinction, both locally and beyond. So to give you an example of the impact of empire on the natural world in Liverpool and the way it reshaped people, places, and imaginaries, Port Sunlight, the faux traditional English village built by William Lever for his factory employees at Lever Brothers, today Unilever, one of the world's largest consumer goods multinationals, was made possible through the transformation of the natural world in places like the Congo, although many others as well, to produce natural commodities that we use to make soap and other products. And of course, the products produced there serve to shape in turn local and wider English and British identities. Port Sunlight was, of course, also designed notably as a garden village, or what came to be known as a garden suburb, which was organized around green spaces, including allotments and gardens. These were in turn shaped by things like seeds from Bees Limited, the company developed by Arthur Bully of Ness Gardens to bring so-called exotic seeds to Britain, which he sent out collectors to gather in places like the Himalayas. He wanted to bring those specifically to the working classes. So, of course, we're talking here about the role of empire in shaping the English garden. But not only was the English garden in many ways an imperial construct, it was made possible by the destruction and transformation of the natural world in Liverpool and beyond. This was due in part to the ways in which natural history collecting, for example, was funded in Liverpool and surrounding areas, i.e., that the basis of the wealth of collectors like the 13th Earl of Derby, whose menagerie at Knowsley Hall in the first half of the 19th century was one of the largest private collections of animals and plants, well, mostly animals, in Europe, and whose collection of natural history specimens served as the foundation for the Liverpool Museum, now World Museum. This wealth of his was derived in part or in whole from things like extractive labor in coal mines close to home, or from things like rentier landlordism. So these processes then demonstrate the intimacy between the colonial and the local, and race and class when it comes to the natural world at home, and how they transformed understandings of that world. So what this project aims to do is to tease out the nature of all of these connections and how they shape Liverpool, its people, and its environment. but it also aims to develop or encourage new ways of looking at and interacting with the natural world and with it to promote well-being. As a result, one of our proposed outcomes, which we're currently developing a trial of, is a semantic database that we envision as a decolonising and democratizing tool for our partner institutions. All of which, I just realized I've skipped over a semantic database before that. Yeah, never mind, go back. Okay, here we go. Sorry, this is this tech thing.
Are you okay?
Get me back to where I was.
On that. Aaron, please go back and forward.
Yeah, there we go. That'll be quicker. You get to see on my flashy. Some of my students taught me this last week, and I was quite excited how to get all these effects on my slide. Okay, so a semantic database that we envision as a decolonising and democratizing tool for our partner institutions, all of which, of course, use different database systems and have differing amounts and types of knowledge on their collections, which also range from material and documentary to living collections. A semantic database, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is a type of database that can store, organize, and interpret data based on their meaning or semantics, and use conceptual schemas to capture the relationships between various entities in the data. So it builds layers of meaning and connections. So for the trial, we are taking a bird skin specimen from World Museum, Coleonis maculata, or the spotted green pigeon, which is also known as the Liverpool pigeon, which is extinct. It's related to that icon of extinction, the dodo, and is the only known specimen in existence. We're starting with this bird because of its Liverpool tie and the fact that it didn't come from anywhere remotely near Liverpool, but rather through imperial and colonial connections. But we're also using it because, as the senior curator of birds at the Natural History Museum, Hein van Groo, has noted, much has been written about this bird, but very little has actually been said about it, making it an enigma that has always baffled ornithologists. We'll be connecting this bird with other specimens at World Museum, such as crossbreeds of species from different parts of the globe developed by the 13th Earl of Derby, from whose collection the Liverpool pigeon came, and connect these to a breed of deer, Père David's deer or Milu at Knowsley Safari Park that is extinct in the wild. We can then connect these to things like Lever Brother products or advertising, like this poster on the manufacture of Sunlight soap, which involve products from all over the world. This was designed for use in schools. Or we can connect it to things like Himalayan plants sold through Bees Limited, or to insects that were studied at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, and so on. In the larger project, our aim is to take a material, object, living creature, or document of some kind from all of our partner institutions and connect these through the database. But we also aim to open up the process of contributing this to a range of communities, groups, etc., to add further layers of meaning, and through that connect the global and the local, the scientific and the mundane, the unknown with the known, or the imagined, evidence with erasure, and celebration with mourning and loss. Another trial that we're currently working on developing involves a project with the rural-based charity Grow Wellbeing, which supports the mental health of a range of underrepresented groups using the Forest School model of learner-centered practice. We'll be working with a group of adolescents who, according to research, experience higher levels of anxiety about ecological issues, in particular climate change, and also feel powerless to have any effect on decision-making in regard to it. So we want to help young people understand that change is part of the natural environment as the transformation of Liverpool's environment as a result of the dissemination of plants and animals from far-flung parts of the globe due to the city's role as an imperial port reveals. But we also want through this to domesticate and localize fears of environmental change by empowering young people both to re-envision their local environment and direct change in it. This includes not just in quality green spaces, but what in the Liverpool City Region's 2025 Local Nature Recovery Strategy terms, wait for this one, opportunity areas. So these are spaces where there is a potential opportunity, so these are the abandoned bits of green space, to enhance, restore, or create new habitat. These are often spaces, however, that are subject to antisocial behavior, tipping, and littering. So with this in mind, the adolescents that we are working with will undertake a series of sessions in which they will, for example, learn about a local opportunity area by exploring the plants that inhabit it and what parts of the world they might have originated from. We want to focus on mobility when it comes to plants and animals, not on native versus non-native species or invasive species. They will also undertake a trip to Ness Botanic Gardens, one of the project partners, to learn about and explore a garden that is in many ways a product of Empire. They'll visit the natural history collections at World Museum as well and learn about what a specimen is and how living creatures get turned into specimens, as well as about where many of them may have come from. And then what they'll do is they'll re-envision their own green space by collecting specimens from it. Not just of plants and animals, but we're thinking here of the human-made detritus that they find there and photographing these. So rather than viewing their space as denuded, corrupted, or wasteland, in other words, they will be encouraged to re-envision what they find there as part of, rather than a violation of, natural space, and to think about how they can reframe such plants, animals, and objects within it as specimens, and hence as worthy of study and interest. And we're going to ask them to photograph their specimens and then include these in the semantic database that we're developing. And lastly, the children involved in the trial will create videos in which they're encouraged to reflect on these experiences, particularly on how they have made them reassess their own green space or look at it differently, as well as offer visions of how they would like to transform it from a le perdu or lost space into a le trouvé or a found one. So for the larger project, we envision having young people produce art from their specimens and to donate these to World Museum if World Museum wants this stuff, and possibly to include these as part of an exhibition. It would be great, for example, to place these alongside some of the museum specimens and use the exhibition to reflect on what a specimen is and who has authority, material, linguistic, scientific, cultural, and so on over them. I'll leave that there.
Thanks so much, Deana. Does anyone have any questions? Emer. I'll do it.
Thanks, Deana. That was a really interesting presentation. I'm intrigued by the semantic database. Is that something that actually exists, or is that something that you're trying to develop? I haven't come across.
As a concept, it's been around for about 50 odd years.
So is there like literally a product you buy in order to store information? You were talking about kind of vegetable schema being produced and all this.
No, so the way that you literally do this is we come up with a semantic. So we're starting with a set of, we're keeping it really simple because this can get huge. So we're going to start with about 8 semantics. So it will include things like Liverpool, the word extinction. Green is one of the ones I want to use because that can connect so many different things. So we determine the semantics. And then thankfully, I don't have to think about this, but part of my project team includes someone from the National Center for Digital Heritage. He's going to do the tech. So the tech side of it is not the tricky part. It's just really thinking the semantics, what you're going to populate the database with, how you're going to connect them all. And then the end result, as I said, is each institution then has access to it rather than, you know, us trying to connect that to all of their systems.
That's great. Thank you.